Welcome to the Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. If you're into numbers, strategies, and building a great planning business, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Welcome to Season 4, Episode 12 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute, and I'm joined by
Paul Cleworth.
And today we're discussing the sandwich generation, funding your own retirement while supporting your children and your parents. But before we dive into that, Paul, what have you been up to since you last spoke?
Well, we last spoke fairly recently because you popped over to my house with your good wife and we had a catch-up, didn't we, for my sort of 50th birthday, albeit it's not till September.
It was for your 50th
birthday. I know I don't look 50. It's coming up this year. Can you believe it? It was my 50th birthday as far as we're concerned. Yeah. I'm nearly half a century old. That's terrifying.
Half a century wiser.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I think I've reached my peak at late 30s, maybe early 40s, and then it's all downhill after that. No, I'm an optimist. I'm just getting going. I'm in the best part of my life, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I've been up to the usual, doing work, running the business, obviously, but fun stuff. It's different. I went and played pigeon shooting recently with a friend and a client of mine. I know that you've got a few guns. You do this more than me, isn't that right? You've got shotguns.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm pretty rubbish at it, I've got to be honest. I was shooting at the target instead of in front of it. But that was fun. I've been playing a bit of golf with Kevin. That's fun. A lot of kids stuff. My youngest boy, Rory, we had a moving up day at Hitchin Boys. So he goes for the whole day and gets to know it. So that was quite challenging, but he dealt with it like a superstar. And then just yesterday, I went to his school play where he played a granddad in his 70s. He was wearing old spectacles and a jumpsuit randomly, and it was called School Days. And there was singing, and he had loads of lines. He was the main part. I was beaming. I was absolutely beaming because he's quite introverted, and he's almost the opposite now. I just didn't realize he had this in him, the ability to learn all these lines and to sort of project his personality. And it was cool. It was cool. Lovely.
Yeah.
The last thing, two things I wanted to mention is I happened to go to the London Stock Exchange fairly recently with someone called Warren Shute was there as well, and Dimensional invited us, and it was quite a nice evening. It was quite historic in that regard. Put my name in the ledger to say I was there. I didn't physically stop it myself with the button, but I was just part of the event. And the last thing I would say, I'm on a health drive. Since every time I see you, I eat and drink too much, and then after that, I'm right. I need to sleep better, do more exercise, eat less, and I can't keep up with Mr. Shute. I just can't do it anymore.
We didn't have a big.
And you're older than me.
I think the stock exchange was outstanding. I loved it, and I can't thank Dimensional enough. It was a bit of a geeky thing to enjoy, but like I tried to explain to a client the other day, you like IT. I like the stock exchange, just the history behind it. That was pretty impressive to do that. And we had a fantastic time at your place and opened up some of your very nice whiskey, which you very generously shared, and which was all very good. In the office, I think primarily most of my time at the moment is been spent onboarding and settling in both James Castle and Finley Porteous, who are our two new trainee financial planners. So we're building the next generation of financial planners. So planning ourselves for the future. I've no plans to retire or go anywhere, but it's a bit late to train someone up in your ways when you actually need them. So it's kind of thinking of the future. And they're flying. James is 40 and Finley is 18. So from a experience and background perspective, they come from the opposite end of the spectrum. But I wrote an article for the press today about their experience and how it all works together. They're doing brilliantly. I'm so proud of both of them. And
doing it the Lexington way.
Doing it. Yeah. Do you know what? It's important because we have a very successful way of delivering financial planning advice that enables us to enjoy it. Christian is running with it. He's doing a great job. He is currently advising clients with me. So it's just natural to sort of bring the next generation up. So tomorrow, at the moment, we're preparing for our State of the Nation. Every quarter, we have a quarterly team meeting, and that's tomorrow. So my wife puts all the financials together. We have transparency. We share everything with the team so they know what's going on. And we're all getting together in the morning to have a bit of a rah. And I was just talking to a firm today. I won't mention their name, but they got $5 billion under management. Wow. And I was just like, do you know what? Yeah, I think we're only limited by our own beliefs. I think we just need to open our mindset a little bit and just think a little bit bigger and challenge the status quo.
The idea, the thing that you said there, though, you need a repeatable process so that the client, so it's seamless. And the
Mm.
client's point of view, regardless of whether they get you or Christian or James or is it Alex?
Finley.
Finley, whether they
Finley.
get any of those, that they get essentially the same support level of advice, that it's the language is the same. I think that's what's
Yeah.
missing in some firms, perhaps, where there's
Yeah.
lots of advisors doing it a slightly different way. It doesn't mean one's necessarily better or worse than the other, but and what I'm saying is that it has to be, similar.
I'm very proud that Christian came from a very well-known firm in the UK, and he joined us thinking that, oh yeah, I'll walk with this. And he's like, wow, you do it slightly differently. And he's followed, every meeting has an agenda. Every single meeting has an agenda. And we go through every single agenda exactly the same way. Sometimes we'll labor points more than others, but I do believe we have a repeatable process. And when I've followed up with clients who Christian's done the meeting on, I say, how'd it go? Warren, yes, exactly the same.
Warren, he was slightly better than you are.
He probably, yeah, but you joke at that, and I wouldn't be surprised if
that's a good outcome.
It's a great outcome. He's a lot more friendlier, softer, personal. I'm a lot more logical, factual. Let's get the outcome.
Okay,
whereas he's a lot more put your arm around. He's fantastic.
He's
My clients are very lucky.
And likable, and you're the opposite. I got it.
Yeah, maybe. It's. I think clients work with me because they get the outcome. I think they probably work with Christian. They get the outcome, but he's a really, really, really. He's one of life's nicest guys. He really is. I would trust him with my life.
So hire people that are going to do it your way, ultimately with their own personality, and that are likable. People buy because they like and trust you. They want this support, the great outcomes, the great advice, but there's no substitute for that level of integrity and optimism and just positivity. And people are amicable. That has to be the.
And we've kind of disagreed somewhat on this in the past. I don't think we sell. I really don't. We just deliver a successful product clearly, and people buy it.
Help people to buy is the key. Don't sell. Help them buy. That's the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. Should we get on with our our focal point today?
Yes.
Do you want to remind us what it is?
So the sandwich generation, odd expression, but funding your own retirement while supporting your children and your parents. How do we manage these three things all at once? And we had a little chat off air before we went. And I said, it's really important for me that I don't come across as some kind of guru who has expertise in this area. I'm first and foremost a financial planner, and I'm very, very good at it. But I don't profess to have all the experience and knowledge of doing it. Although I guess I have working knowledge. I have young children, not as young as yours, and I have parents and in-laws and stuff that we help out. So, we are sort of juggling like so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. For any of our listeners, if you're driving the kids to football on the phone to your mum's GP, wondering how on earth you'll ever afford to retire because you're doing all three, then this episode and the next episode, because we're going to sort of split this into two. There's two parts to it, aren't there? Episodes 12, episode 13. This one's hopefully for you. So from my own point of view, as Warren, as you just mentioned, we know from the discussion I'm coming up for 50, so I'm sort of past middle-aged. I'll say middle-aged. I do have two young boys that are 14 and 11, and do my best to be a good dad, and want the best for them. And you got to put the effort and the time in. Maybe they'll go into higher education. We'll sort of find out. But I'm trying to give them as good a support as possible, whilst trying to fund my own retirement and my wife's, and then still, because we've got elderly parents on both sides, is helping them out. Not just financially, it's not really that as much. It's more so being there for them and giving them our time. And I think that it feels like sometimes you're being pulled in two different directions. You can't just focus on yourself. You have to sort of give time to your children, obviously, as be a responsible parent and help them become responsible adults, but also time to our parents. So the whole concept of this podcast and next one is to sort of unpick a bit this issue, and it's partly because people have had kids later and in life, and I was mid-30s when we had our eldest, and parents are still alive, and because of that, I am the classic sandwich generation where I'm you're pulled from pillar to post trying to say, well, how do I balance all of this? I mean, do you find that with either yourself, or if you don't want to use yourself as an example, some of your clients?
I guess I'm just incredibly selfish. Do you know what I think the setup?
That's not it. No, maybe you're just good at balancing your time. It's about how do you allocate that time, Warren?
I think listening to you when we sat down and we had a chat and stuff like that. You and your wife Alison do a great job of running around and being there for your children and stuff like that. Most of my children's activities took place at the school. So they're at a private school and their days were like 12 hours long sometimes, in all their, so they would drop them off at school, and actually they'd take themselves to school a lot of the time, and their activities would take place at the school. So there's a real advantage there that we didn't have football. I used to take my daughter to football clubs occasionally, but didn't have all this running around afterwards. From different sort of places. And my wife, in fairness to her, was very strict on the basis of she is not going to run around all weekend or sit next to a swimming pool. That was her worst expression. Sit next to a swimming pool all weekend watching her kids swim. And I think if anyone should write a book on parenting, it should be my wife. She's got it down to a T. Honestly, she really does. Anyway. So
I bought a book recently called.
I just had a great role model. I followed.
He has followed her. That's good. Well, maybe it's whatever happened, and I know that you're very proud of your children and they're growing up quick. What I was going to say is it comes down to a lot of personal circumstance. We happen to live in the middle of nowhere, insofar as everywhere is 15 minutes away, and there's this a small little hamlet, and because of that, if the kids want to do anything, we have to drive them, or they have to be picked up. We have to take them places. Whereas, as you just mentioned, there are other people that have homes where there's lots of kids around. They're close to school. They're walking distance. So it's a choice. We made a choice here. But there's also scenarios where families and some of our clients have got their mum and dad close by to help out. It wasn't the case with us. My parents live 600 miles away in Scotland, and my wife's family parents live 150 miles away in Wales. They want to be here and close, and we go to see them. But my point is, we've got to do all of it. We've got to support ourselves. We've got to go to see them. It takes time, and we've got to run our kids everywhere. So it's about balancing that time. Now, I'm not going to get the little violin out. It's not boo-hoo. I don't feel I have any regrets, but I'm very fortunate to work at home. I'm not being funny, but if I was to commute every day into London, I would miss out that hour and a half there and back every day of spending time with my kids. So I did prioritize we're always having meals together and, putting them to bed, the bedtime routine. And it's unfortunate not everyone can do that because of time restraints with work. They're just not there to do it.
Yeah, I think also as a parent, your kids are going to be all right if they don't do everything. I think you kind of got to look and think if your kids don't go to every single club out there, they're still going to grow up okay. I went to one club, I walked it on my own, stuff like that, when I was growing up. And I just think sometimes the desire for a parent to do every kind of activity and to fill their kids' diary and get them really busy, what are you weighing up? You got to offset something. If you take something, you're giving up something. Whatever, horses for courses. What do you want to do? If you want to run around, taking your kids everywhere all the time, then that's cool. That's all right. But I don't think it's I personally don't think it's a sandwich generation issue. I think it's a decision issue that you've chosen to do those.
Yeah, I get that. And let's be clear. This is not about a podcast about how to parent. We're doing our best. I bought a book the other day called How to Dad, and I'm still reading through it.
You are a brilliant dad. I came away and said to my wife, Paul is such a great dad. Because
thanks so much.
You like playing and stuff. You got all those. Jesus, that guy's got more gadgets in there than the gadget shop.
I read an article the other day that you need to make sure that your children are bored. That sometimes they're bored. And it's very important because they can then think for themselves. So if a child is on the screens all the time, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or TV, or they're always doing something and they don't have the time because you don't set aside time during the week or the weekend where they can think for themselves and do their own thing, they don't develop themselves. They just follow a process the whole time. So I'm a big believer in that. And I think we talk about it sometimes about the importance of taking time out, whether that's meditating or having time in the diary where you're not busy. And this podcast is very much about acknowledging the fact that a lot of people are so busy with work themselves. They've then got to somehow parent their kids and assist with or be there for their parents, and often be a carer for their parent and help them financially. So, just to sort of define the point, we're saying that it's people that are simultaneously supporting children and aged parents, and that's the concept of the sandwich generation. And there are 1.4 million, according to the ONS, sandwich carers between 16 and 64 in the UK. 61% of women, half are aged between 45 and 65. These are the exact years you're meant to be saving the hardest for retirement, and yet you end up either having to spend a lot of that money on your kids or your parents. And you're right, you can decide. You could be people can choose, they make their own decisions. They can be selfish and just spend no time with their kids or the parents and focus on themselves. And that's not for me or you to sort of suggest which one they should do. But it is a problem that we need to acknowledge.
Yeah. And I don't think it's not spending time with your kids. I think it's not running your kids around everywhere. Because if you come home and you relax and you talk to your kids, you read with your kids and have play games with kids, that's different. Yeah. But if your kids in a club and you've got to drive an hour away to do the club, and then they're not with you, they're doing their own thing, you're just sat there.
Sometimes we think we're helping our children by making it easy for them, running them everywhere, giving them everything, giving them every opportunity, and it's bizarrely the opposite. You're actually hindering them in the later life because they just think it all comes too easy. And this is where I'm not as strict as you with my kids, and I need to be.
It's that running around thing, and the run. You said about helping your parents financially. That's the easy bit, right? Helping them financially is the easy bit. It's the
if you've got the money, it is. But yeah, it's the time. I know you're going to go with that. Yeah.
Well, you're only going to be able to help them what you got. So if you haven't got any money, you can't help them. But it's not rocket science. If you don't have the money, you can't help them. But if you've got the money, you can help them. But it's the time. It's the time. The thing is the most precious thing for all of us. So if you then, the people I really feel for, if you have parents who need care, who aren't getting the care, that's where it really comes in. Because I think the care can really be physically and emotionally draining if you've got to deliver it, because you are running a 8-hour day job and you have children and stuff like that.
It makes me think of the U shape of happiness, and it's not quite a U anymore. It was meant to be that those pre-adults, so up to 18 typically, or certainly before age 21, are happy because you've got very little in the way of responsibility. Typically, you're still exploring things. Your things are new. And then you then develop your career, get a job, have a family, have kids. And I'm not saying you're miserable, but there are stats to show people are less happy. And then later on, so it goes from high happiness to low, and then it goes back up in your 60s. So it's the truth, when your kids have left the nest, when your parents have died and people have retired, they're like, woohoo, in my 60s, now I can get on with it. And of course,
you don't believe that though, do you?
No. But I believe that there are people that I work with at the moment that are stressed because of their job. They're financially burdened by their family, their children, helping their parents. And it takes its toll on them. So whether you deem it happiness is probably the wrong term, but they have definitely got more time on their hands when the kids leave the nest, and they're no longer responsible for their parents because their parents move on. And it's the truth. People get more time. It doesn't mean they're happier necessarily, so it's the wrong phrase, but they get to a point where it becomes easier.
You must hate doing these podcasts for me because I don't always go with the flow, but this is what we used to talk about before we did podcasts. This is how we would talk, and I always wanted to keep it the same. But I genuinely believe that my life has gone, I've got happier and happier. And I think part of that is because you learn more and you understand more. Does that make sense? You appreciate things, but if
not everybody is like that, is the point that I think is worth making. I think that it's a good thing, and I'm pleased for you if that's the case with yourself. If things are going well and you're happier and everything's going well, it's that people have trauma in their life. They have times when they lose the job. You and I are fortunate. We've had the same jobs and careers for 25, 30 years. People lose parents, they lose kids, things are tough, they don't have any money. And so I think I'm acknowledging the point that there are a lot of people out there that are unpaid carers. 5.8 million of them in the UK. 2.8 million are juggling work and care at the same time, according to Census 2021. It's tough for people. And later on in this podcast, we're going to talk about, which might come out in the next episode, what you can do about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the important bit. I think what's important is what you can do about it. And try and sort of help people around that side of things.
When I talk to clients about what I do, I say my job is to help you make smart decisions with your money. And I don't like to say, I'm a financial planner. I don't never say I'm an IFA, even though I am an independent financial advisor. And so I like. Sorry about that. There's a thingy going on. I like the fact that I'm. Sorry.
This is a classic sandwich generation, right? You're being called on.
So my son is
He
phoning me
needs
and he
you.
wants
He
something.
needs you.
He wants it. It's crazy that kids call you. I'll
Call
just
your mum.
right. This is part of the podcast. Hello, Rory. Sweetheart, I'm on the phone. I'm doing a podcast. I'm on the podcast. Is anything urgent?
Go and get bored.
Yeah, I'll give you some more time on Kids Locks. Yeah. Okay, darling. See you later. Bye. Wow. This is. Yes, son. Anything you want, son. Let me just change this.
Just go away because I'm on a podcast.
Well, I was trying to be nice about it, but it's just like, give me a second. It rings anyway, buzzes anyway. Okay. So I sort of slightly lost my train of thought there. But yeah, what I was going to say, I think that I say that I help clients make smart decisions with their money. But I would go one further than that. I say to them with the humility, I'm not the oracle of all knowledge. I am not your life coach or a therapist in any way. I've had, like you will have had, conversations with married couples where they're having maritals in the meeting, and I'm saying I'm not your counselor, But at the same time, I do think my job is to try and give the clients the wisdom, not mine, of my experience, and that is just to sort of give them an opinion. If you're an opinionated person, if you're an advisor, your job is to give advice. It's to give opinions, and I think that I'm quite reserved to give a solid, you must and should definitely do this if it's not in my area of expertise. You should get married. I've said that to clients, but you should get divorced. I'm not going to say that. You shouldn't help your parents. I'm never going to say that. But it's to try and say, have you thought about this? Or let's consider a different. If you can see the strain, the emotion, the problems that the client's facing. I spoke to a client today about he's selling his house. He was stuck. There's various problems. I was talking to him about it and saying, have you thought about this? And I've dealt with it so many times that I want to give him some help, some advice.
Yeah. I think that's a financial transaction, the house. So, that's that you jump in all over that. But I often would just say to clients, would you like to discuss this? Or have you got it handled? Have you got it sorted?
Yes.
Because some people don't want your advice or opinion, and you start sticking it in, giving it. It's like, hang on a second. There's a line here, Warren. You're our financial planner, and I appreciate all that, but I don't need you to give me any parental advice or schooling advice for my kids or this, that, and the other. I think it's really important to sort of know the boundaries and just to ask, hey, you want to discuss this further? Would you like my opinion on it? Or have you got it sorted?
No, that's a really, really solid way of addressing it and asking for their acceptance that they want to discuss it. I think when it comes to things like health and fitness, I've definitely gone down that route with clients. They've told me that they want to feel better. We've established we might be talking about protection or longevity and how long they're going to live. And it comes up in conversation. Family members have had illnesses. And I say to them, are you looking after yourself? And it does come up. And I'm very careful about saying, oh, I think you should do this. You should do this gym exercise or routine, or how many steps you're getting in, because it becomes very judgmental. And that's the last thing you want with your clients. I have definitely strayed into talking about diet and supplements and health and fitness. Oh, my God. I'm thinking, quick, pull it back, go back to pensions.
Guru Paul.
No, just cut that. However, it's acknowledging the issue and then trying to empathize with the client. You're not there to sympathize, but you can empathize with the client about their situation. And if you know someone you can put them onto, maybe I've referred clients to a solicitor if they're not happy in their marriage. Members, I've referred them to a life coach or someone else that can assist, or even a coach, a gym coach. Sticking on point, I want us to call out what we think are the three strains on those that are in the sandwich generation. Right, so I'm bringing it back to this point. Right, so you mentioned some of them. So there's the financial strain, the time constraint or the time strain, and the emotional strain. Yeah. So let's start with the financial strain. I definitely
think there's a financial strain. I get that.
Yeah. And on that point of financial strain, again, and there's a few stats here, but I think they're important for people to sort of to know. Take them with a pinch of salt. But apparently, 1 in 6 sandwich carers, remember we're caring for kids and parents, find it quite or very difficult to manage their situation financially. And they think this is rising to 1 in 4 for those that are caring 20 hours a week. Now, we're talking about people that are actually caring for elderly parents as well as being a parent themselves and, living their own lives. And I'm saying not everybody's responsible or needs to be or feels that they should for their parents, but they are your parents. And if you can or in a position to help in some way, it's not just giving them money, it's giving them your time. And that time has got a cost to it. So 53% say that they can't work at all. These are in statistics from the ONS, or as much as they'd like, because of the caring responsibilities they have. 600 people a day give up work to care, according to the ONS. For the family members, usually elderly relatives. It's a true
they probably
thing.
Know what they're going to inherit.
Well, hey, listen, on that point, I don't know if you've had any of these conversations. I've definitely had them with clients where it's not that they're willing their parents to sort of keel over, but it comes no. But I'm saying it comes up in conversation where they talk to me about how much they'll probably inherit at a point in the future. And it's not as if they're sort of saying, I hope mum and dad die in the next 5 years so I get all this money. But I'm saying that it's part of a discussion. When you know your parents are absolutely, if a client's parents are particularly well off, they happen to be the power of attorney, an LPA for their parents, there is a line there, which I've seen clients cross, where they take liberties, they're sort of perhaps not saving as much themselves to look after their own futures because they know they're likely to get an inheritance. And I just say it becomes a bit uncomfortable, especially if they're managing their parents' assets. Some do it with absolute integrity, and others I've seen are a bit less so and are sort of taking liberties.
If they're taking liberties, you should report them to the OPG.
Yeah, it would be if they were responsible in that regard. But it's, anyway, the financial strain is a real thing that people are suffering. The time strain, we touched on it earlier on. It's obvious, isn't it? The time strain. We've only got so many hours in the day. If you want to help your kids, and your parents more, you either get a second job, work harder, or you spend less. But it's very tricky, to try and fill this gap and to sort of to deal with the time constraint. How do you allocate your time? Do you give it to your kids? Do you give it to yourself? Do you give it to your parents? I'm not saying I've got an answer, but it is a strain that people in the sandwich generation have. Have you felt that with any of your clients? That they said, "Oh my God, it's hard work." I mean, it's obvious in a way.
I think there are events that make things stressful. When there's a house move, when there's someone dies in the family or something, there's a wedding, what have you. I even find some clients get stressed about planning and going on a holiday. But I'm not sure I would say they are like it throughout the year.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an ongoing issue. I think that we would probably discuss it if I'm honest and raise it, but I'm thinking through my clients, and I don't think I'm probably going to get a message for a number of them after this. I don't think there are any that are really squeezed regularly ongoing. There are some that their parents have gone into a care home, they're dealing with that. But that's not going to be something that lasts for a period of time. Once they're settled in the care home, they'll just become visiting and such like.
30 years ago, Warren, 40 years ago, the life expectancy is not what it is today, and certainly more than 100 years ago. But let's say going back even just 50 years, people would get their DB schemes, income for life. You and I know this, and then they would die early 70s, mid 70s. The point of this for me is that people are living longer. The cost of living is increasing, and it's not just that. Even if they're financially set up, if they're unable to look after themselves, there's a lot of admin today. There's forms, there's appointments, there's things that you have to help. If you want to dismiss it, don't pick up the phone to your parents. Fine, do that. But if you want to assist, there is a lot to do. And you work first. You're looking after your kids. You're caring for them, and you're parenting. And getting that balance right is what I'm trying to acknowledge today. That it's not that any one plate is heavy. It's that you're spinning all of these plates at once. There are things one can do. You just mentioned yourself that some of your clients don't like booking holidays. Well, what do? You delegate to someone who loves it, who's good at it. If you're not good at doing forms, get someone who's good at doing it. And it's the most obvious answer sometimes eludes people because they take on the responsibility of helping and they spend time doing one thing that they're good at or they don't like to the detriment of other things.
So, I agree with you, and I think that's probably what we do in our family. So my father passed away last year, and I kind of dealt with the finances, and my mum's quite capable of looking after herself. But
you happen to be a financial planner. That makes it easier for someone who's organized and good at finances, surely.
Absolutely, but finance is only one part of it, isn't it? You got the care side of things. So I'm not particularly good at that. So someone who's good at caring might not be good at financing or organization. It's not finance; it's just organization, isn't it? Get on the phone and sorting things out. But I think you just slot that in and structure it in your day, in your work life. For example, it's quite a long process if I go and see my mum, because the distance I see her and stuff like that, and I'm very busy. So we just get her over. She just comes over and stays for a few days, and we do things that way. So I think it's a case of just managing things the best you can.
The solutions we're going to come on to. We're still sort of partly talking about the strains and the numbers, but it's all part of the same thing. The emotional strain, the third strain, that it's worth mentioning. I want to acknowledge the fact that the ONS have suggested that sandwich carers, the ones that we're talking about, specifically the caring for elderly parents, are more likely to report symptoms of mental illness and lower mental health, lower life satisfaction. Now, if one's got it all sorted, and lots of our clients do, a lot of them are, just their parents are financially and mentally active, capable. Their kids are a bit grown up. They're sorted. They're being a good parent, and they're financially well off themselves. They're not suffering from being a sandwich, but it's the point that there's people that suffer financially, mentally, emotionally, and there is definitely something that they can do about it. There's always something you can do about it, and I don't want people listening to this that are in that position to just feel stuck and I don't know what to do. So we're going to try and offer some practical things you can do as we progress. Before we get on to, as I say, the solutions in episode 12, I think that it's worth acknowledging what it costs, according to stats, to sort of, and this is the Child Poverty Action Group, to raise a child. Do you know how much it costs to raise a child to age 18 in monetary terms?
I don't, and I think that I just find it's not nonsense, really, because the way you raise your children, raise mine, are completely opposites, and the amounts are going to be different.
Well, these are averages.
Like no one thinks, oh, how much is it going to cost to raise a kid? Oh, I'm going to have 2 kids because I can afford 2. Oh, I've got a pay rise, so I can have a 3rd child.
I know.
It's just a stat, isn't it?
It is, but it's £250,000 apparently to raise a child to 18. I'm acknowledging the cost of having children. The standard of living over the years is such that you'd argue that we've got a better standard of living in society generally. I think there's a lot of evidence to show that. Yep. But in the last 5 years, 10 years, the last 20 years, the cost of living and the cost of the ability for one parent to fund a family, a wife and 2 kids, is such that it's unusual. Like, it's difficult for one parent, whether it's the husband or wife, the mum or the dad, to support a family of 4. There's data showing America that in the 1950s, which they might look back and say, and this is the optimal point, it's after the war. The cost of buying a house was cheaper. The average income from a man often is the one that was working. The wife, the mum, would support the 2 children, was enough to support the family and buy a house. It's just unusual now. How much have you got to earn to be able to buy a house and support a family of 4, your wife and kids, or the other way around, a wife to support the husband and 2 kids? 100 grand, 150, a lot. It's just the cost of living, the cost of sending a child to university now. I'm sure you've looked into it, but tuition's risen to around about 9.5 grand a year, and the cost of fees for a 3-year degree can be 28 to 29,000.
Yeah, it's one of those costs, isn't it? It's just, yeah.
How much does carers cost? You've got clients that are in care. How much do they spend on the parents' care? Do you know that? A weekly cost or an annual cost?
Yeah, but between £6,000 and £8,000 a month. So that's typically 6 at the lower end, 8 at the higher end. I've got a very successful MD of a care company, and she wants me to put in £10,000 a month for her care.
It's crazy how much care costs, isn't it? I can see why it costs that, but £6,000 to £10,000 a month in some cases, just unbelievable.
I can't see why it costs that. If got to be. I think that's a phenomenal amount of money for care and stuff like that. So,
but it's real, and that's what it does cost. And unless you can satisfy the criteria in England, Wales, or Scotland to have the state pay, which means you've largely got to have no assets at all, really, and be accepted. Otherwise, you're paying. If it's about 23,500 in England, if you've got more assets than that, you're essentially they'll take your income from your state pension, other assets, and you're paying. And the average time in a care home, I think it's something like 3.5 years. It's not that long. Is it 3.5 or is it 6 years? It's not very long, is it? Before they unfortunately pass on. And before we move on, as I say, I just wanted to acknowledge the cost for the individual planning for their own financial independence, their own retirement. It doesn't matter how you spin it as a financial advisor, but there's data to show that it ranges from around 31,700 a year for a single person to have a satisfactory, level of retirement income, to 43.5, nearly 44 grand for a couple, and a comfortable retirement, believe this or not, but this is according to the PLSA Retirement Living Standards 2025, between 43,900 and 60,000 pounds a year for a comfortable retirement income. So you need a structure that's enough to substantiate that.
And what do you think about those figures?
I think it's relative. I think it depends where in the country you live. I think it depends on what your lifestyle costs are. You can't extrapolate, if you like, or disseminate from our clients that we work with, where clients have got large amounts of money, and say, no, this is about right. But I could tell you that if I was to generically look at all of the clients that are in retirement, there are some that are drawing 2,500, 3,000 a month, and then they've got state pension, other income. And at the top end, there are some that are drawing 10,000, 15,000 pound a month. I think it's very typical that it's 5,000 to 10,000 a month for a couple. Well, that's 60 to 120,000 pound a year. That's considerably more than these statistics were showing here. But these are based on the country's average. So I know that if you get to this point of retirement, whatever age you suggest that is from, whether it's 60 or 67, it's you have to have enough money to, pay the bills, pay for food, and not necessarily go away on luxury holidays, but have enough for it to be able to eat and live and go out maybe. And it's different for everyone. But you just, how some couples do it, but only having husband and wife state pensions. That's it, old school state pensions. They've got no other forms of income. You won't be able to do much. It's nowhere near enough. That's below even the lowest level of standard that these stats are suggesting. And yet people live on it somehow.
Yeah, they get other benefits though. Unless they've got capital, there'd be other benefits that they could claim. So,
So that's the issue in a nutshell. Anything else? Sorry, I just interrupted.
No. Make it's. I'm feeling depressed. It's tough. I'm feeling the squeeze. I'm feeling the squeeze of the sandwich.
In episode 13 that we'll talk through now, we can talk through some of the things you can do.
Cool.
All right.
See you next time, Paul.
See you next time. Yeah, see you next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.